Hi everyone, welcome back to my little corner of creation. I'm Celia and today I'm going to show you my method to draw a realistic eye using graphite and charcoal pencil. The material I'm using for this are Faber-Castell 2B, 3B and 6B pencil, charcoal pencil and eraser for some of the highlights. You can use Apsara or Camlin pencil as well if you don't have Faber-Castell pencil, but according to me you should use a Faber-Castell pencil because they are way much softer than all the other pencils and they work really very smooth on the paper. Make sure your pencil is sharp enough to draw a light sketch. So let's get straight onto this tutorial. So the first thing that I did was I created a very accurate sketch and I used a reference photo to do this. A reference photo is really important if you want to draw a realistic drawing. I first made all of the main structures like the pupil, iris, waterline, the main creases and also the main shadow and highlights. Make sure not to press the pencil too hard while drawing or you won't be able to erase easily when you need to. For accuracy, you can use the grid method also to draw. First, I started with the white part of the eye on the left side and the tear duct. So here what I have done is I have shaded the white of the eye with 2B pencil and blended it with a dry brush. You can use anything to blend like a cotton, a tissue paper or a blending stump, but blending is really important. It gives the drawing a very smooth and 3D effect. So there is a common misconception that the white of the eye is just white, whereas in reality there's quite a bit of shading throughout the white part to give it a 3D look. I have shaded the top and the bottom of the white of the eye and towards the middle it's quite clear and bright. I gave a darker shade with 3B above the waterline and in the corners as well. On the tear duct, I have used 2B pencil and give it a darker shade, but I have left a few areas clear where the highlights are. So in the iris what I did, I used 2B pencil and started adding light layer to initiate where the highlights are within the iris and also where the shadowed areas are, leaving the highlights right from the beginning. But for the beginners that will be a bit difficult, so first we are gonna start by adding a base layer with 2B. I've used a small makeup brush for blending the layer. Blend it evenly to give a smooth look. After blending, I have used 3B pencil to add a second darker layer. Refer to your reference picture to see where you need to add the darker shades. I'm not covering the whole part with 3B because then you have to erase a lot to get the highlights. Blend the second layer with your brush. Clean your brush regularly with a cloth or a tissue. Now we will add the texture and the highlight in the iris. Add the highlights with the pointed eraser. I've got a new eraser, that's why the edges are really sharp and pointed. But you can cut a piece of your eraser to get a defined edge to create those detailed highlights. Or you can also use an eraser pen. Don't use a white pen or correction pen for the highlights because you won't be able to modify it afterwards. Draw wavy lines or as you can see in your reference photo. Be patient and take your time. Don't rush because your lines should be really thin to give a realistic look. Keep on cleaning your eraser regularly. You can also modify your eraser tip with a paper cutter or a sandpaper to keep it sharp. After that, take your 6B pencil and add darker lines around pupil. Don't overlap the white highlighted lines. Add these darker lines in the middle as well as in the corner. Outline some of the white lines so that they are more visible. Blend it with a brush to give it a 3D effect. Blend the edges of the iris too. Also add small lines with 2B pencil at the left side of the iris to make blood vessels. Now with a 3B pencil, draw the shadow of the eyelashes in the highlighted part. You can also use a charcoal pencil to do this, but make sure your charcoal pencil is really pointed because those lashes are really thin. So now I'm going to draw the eyelashes. Instead of drawing them with graphite pencil, I am drawing them with a charcoal pencil so that they look dark enough as the reference pic. Keep pressure in the start and then loosen up the pressure on your pencil as you go towards the tip of the lashes. It gives a very thin and sharp look at the end of the lashes. If you're having problem doing directly with charcoal pencil, then draw light lines with 3B pencil and then darken them with charcoal pencil. I am doing the eyelashes first because I will shade the upper eyelid and the creases with a graphite pencil, and charcoal doesn't work smoothly on graphite. Remember, the lashes should be curved and should intersect with each other. Leave the highlights and fill the lashes with black. Now I'm drawing the upper eyelid. Draw all the creases you see in the reference photo and fill the upper portion with a base shade, that is 2B, and blend it with a dry brush. With a 3B pencil, give a darker shade to the crease and blend it with a dry brush. And now start drawing a small detailed part on the upper eyelid to give texture to the skin. Grab an eraser and add highlights between the creases. It's really important to create a bit texture in the skin, especially if it's quite textured skin. It might not always be super smooth, so there might be a bit texture that you need to replicate. So now I'm adding some short eyelashes in front. It's really important to look into your reference photo and get a general idea of how the eyelash hair are curved and where they are thicker and where thinner. After that, I'm using charcoal pencil for the pupil because it is the darkest area in my reference photo. With that, I'm adding another layer of charcoal to the iris to match the pupil and add more depth, and darkening up the shadows even more, adding some lines in the edges and around the pupil and also around the highlighted lines. Now I'm going to the white of the eye. At the right side, the shade is not so dark. I'm just giving a bit shade on the upper part with 2B and blending it with a dry brush. Take a 3B and add a darker shade in the corner. Again, leave the highlighted part white. Now I'm just slightly layering the lower eyelid with a 2B pencil all over that skin area on the lower eyelid, and I'm using the side of the pencil because this helps to get a really even coverage, and I'm not applying a lot of pressure, just building up light layers. So it really doesn't matter if it looks messy because when you blend it out it gets really smooth. As long as you're not applying a lot of pressure, you won't get stubborn pencil strokes showing through. After doing the shadows, I'm getting in the eraser to pull out some highlights near the tear duct, waterline and lower eyelid creases. Now while doing the lower eyelashes, make sure your pencil is really sharp because bottom eyelashes are much more thinner than the upper eyelashes. The lashes should be thicker on the roots and thinner at the ends to create that volume in them and make them look realistic, so that they don't get the same thickness across. So it's really important to look at those details. So now I'm just adjusting the details and texture to the skin. So this reference photo had a few little creases under the eye, so it's really important to get the texture in. So I'm just going in with the 2B pencil and blocking in where those creases are, making sure that my contrast is accurate. It's really important to make sure your shadows are dark enough and highlighted areas are bright enough to really make that pop out. Again, I'm using eraser to brighten highlight even more. And now I'm going to repeat the process with the rest of the skin, drawing some crisscross lines on the lower eyelid and darken the creases even more so that they look deep creases rather than shallow creases. So I'm going in with that 2B pencil and just layering down. Again, it really doesn't matter if it gets a bit messy, that's completely fine. It will blend out really smooth. If you don't have a brush, then I would recommend a few things to blend with, like a tissue. That's a really good and cheap substitute for getting smooth graphite shading. And also cotton buds, they also give a really smooth shading in graphite pencils. Here I've added charcoal in that upper eyelid crease so that it really gives a good depth in that crease. So the crease is a bit dark here, and the darker it gets, the more sort of looks like a deep crease. Now I'm going for another layer using 3B and 6B pencil, this time to get the shadows even darker. And I'm blending them out after each layer to give it a smoother look. Here I'm blending them with a cotton bud to show you guys that cotton bud also gives a really smooth texture, and on a larger surface you can use cotton buds rather than small paint brushes. Here also I'm not adding pressure on the pencil, I'm just using a darker shade of the pencil like 3B and 6B to get the darker shade, but not putting pressure on the 2B or 3B pencil to get a darker shade. That will just ruin your paper by giving stubborn pencil marks. Now for the eyebrow, I'm blocking in very lightly where the hair should be. Just look for the general direction and look for where the most eyebrow hair, the most dense place are, and the way the hair are fading down into the skin. And I'm also using the charcoal pencil to get it really dark. So when I'm finished with the eyebrow, I'm going to move on to adding some details to the texture in the skin. I'm adding in some highlights with the eraser and lightening some of the skin, like just above the eye and below the eyebrows. And then I used a really tiny piece of eraser to create some light eyebrow hairs and highlights below the eyebrow and blend them to make them more subtle. They shouldn't be too bright. Adding straight lines at the top and a bit shorter lines and curved lines just above the upper eyelid. You can refer to your reference photo and look at the direction of the white highlighted hairs. They are all in different directions, so just go through the direction and do the same. Then add shadows and creases in between the highlighted white eyebrow hairs to give it a good texture. Add more shadows where you feel like you should add shadows. A good way to tell that your contrast is good is to take a photo in your phone and see if it really catches your eye. If it doesn't catches your eye, then you have to add more shadows. So there are a lot of highlights near the tear duct. As you can see, they are a bit different from the highlights we have done under the eyebrow. These are a bit round shaped and longer than the ones we have done before. So I've just tapped with my eraser and drawn wavy lines around the tear duct and around the lower eyelid to show the highlights, and blend them up with a cotton bud or a paintbrush or a makeup brush. There are a few more creases in my reference photo on the lower eyelid of the eye, so I'm adding few more creases over there, also highlighting the highlights with a chubby pencil, giving them a shadow, and I'm just drawing crisscross lines. You don't have to be accurate as the reference photo. Just look at the direction where the lines are going and draw the same and blend them up. Now I'm using a Jelly Roll white pen. If you don't have a white pen, then you can use a correction pen or whitener also. I'm going to draw some sharp highlights in the iris near the waterline, on the upper eyelid, in the tear duct. It's really important to draw a highlight in the tear duct because it's really very shiny over there. You can add a few eyelashes if you want to. It will give a really realistic look. Some white eyelashes near the tear duct and outline a few eyelashes just above the iris. You can highlight a few of the eyebrow hair above the upper eyelid if you want to. They will also give a really nice effect, a 3D look, but you should blend them up because they should look subtle, not too bright. By the way guys, I would love to know what other tutorials do you want to see, in which medium, or is there anything in particular you want a tutorial on? Just let me know your suggestions and I would be happy to create it for you all. And everyone, that is it for this tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more tutorials, and I'll see you next time. Bye.